Hi, it's Mike Panja, and today I'm going to do something a little bit different, something I never do, or let me say rarely do. I'm going to follow somebody else's recipe exactly and just try it out and we'll see what happens. Normally, I don't present anything that I haven't made myself 6 or 8 or 100 times, so I know it works and I know it comes out presentable and tasty. In this case, it's something new. It's something I haven't tried, but I read articles about it. This is what they call, let's see, crispy cheese pan pizza. This is a deep dish pizza developed by the King Arthur Flour Company. I read about it in my food magazines and my food articles online, my newspapers. I saw it in several different places, how hard they worked on it and how long they worked on it, and how much they tweaked it to get it just right. So I was impressed with what I read. So I want to try it, and I want to try it with you. Now, I've never done it before, so we'll see. Now, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and we had good pizzerias. You hear that squeaking? You hear that squeaking? That's my pet duck. I gave him a little squeeze toy that squeaks so he can peck at it and have a little fun sometime. And that's what he's doing. If he's not quiet, I'll have to put him outside, which I'm not doing because I'm expecting a delivery of some cooking stuff. And some of the delivery guys are afraid when they see this big animal walking around. Okay, let me get him. We'll put him out and we'll hope for the best. Now that I brought it up, I guess I have to show you what he looks like. This is a Muscovy duck. They're tropical. They really don't belong up here in Maryland, but he does pretty well. He does better with the cold weather and snow than I do. His name is Pee-wee, and I'm going to send him outside right now. As I was saying, when I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, there were great pizza places all over the place. Wherever you lived in Brooklyn, you could find a good pizzeria within blocks, within 2 or 3 short blocks. These were usually mom and pop operations. And when I saw these big companies forming pizza companies, Pizza Hut, Domino's, who's the other one? Papa John's. And I couldn't imagine how they were going to displace the little mom and pop pizzerias that were so good all through the city, all through Brooklyn and all through the rest of the city. But I just looked online to see how many there were of each of those franchises, and there seemed to be quite a few. So I guess Brooklyn has given up on the idea of the hand-tossed, lovingly made individual pizzas made in these little mom and pop shops, and that's too bad. At any rate, when I was, I guess about in my 30s, working for IBM, I was sent off to Chicago on a business trip, and I learned about deep dish pizza. I thought this was pretty strange. Why would anyone want anything like that? I grew up with thin crust pizza, which you could see the artisans tossing in the air in the shop, and they weren't doing it for show. They were doing it because that's the way they could stretch the dough very thin, the way they wanted it to make a finished pizza. So at any rate, I was introduced to the deep dish pizza concept in Chicago. And then I learned there was a big rivalry between the New York pizza gang and the Chicago pizza gang on whose pizza was better. Well, to me, there was no contest. It was always the thin skin, thin crust, Brooklyn, tossed in the air pizza, which I enjoyed so much. Now, despite all of that, I've been intrigued by this story of how the King Arthur Flour Company developed this recipe for basically a deep dish pizza made in a cast iron pan. Now that's, as you may have known, you may have heard me say before, I love my cast iron. I'm really into it. So when they gave me a chance to exploit the cast iron and do something really good with it, I jumped at it. So here we go. I'm going to follow the recipe, the King Arthur Flour Company. God bless them. A couple of things I like about them. Number one, all the wheat they use is organic. Nice. That's a good feature. The other thing is the company is 100% worker owned. So I kind of like that socially. I like the idea of that. So I always try and select King Arthur flour. I hate to give a commercial because I don't get paid for any of this, but I have to admit I am really fond of the company and I really like the product. Here's a list of ingredients you'll need to make the King Arthur Flour Company's crispy, cheesy pan pizza. We'll start off putting the ingredients for the crust together. As you probably know, if you've watched me before, I like to go by weight. So I'm zeroing my kitchen scale. I guess you can hear some squeaking. Pee-wee is back with us. He knocks on the door when he wants to come in. What can I do? I can't leave him out there stranded. He won't love me anymore. Okay, we're looking for 240 grams of all-purpose flour. I use the bulk method until I get close. I went a little past it. I got to 266. So there's 252, 244, 240. Good job, Mike. Okay. Next we need, where'd we put the salt? Over here. 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Should we take a vote? Does that look like 3/4 of a teaspoon? Yeah, I think so. Okay, that goes in. Now we need the instant dry yeast. They only want a half a teaspoon of this. The package is 2 1/4 teaspoons. So I guess we're gonna have to put less than a full package in here. Half a teaspoon. I'm calling that a half a teaspoon. What do you think, kids? Okay, half a teaspoon. They specified the instant yeast, and that's what I'm using, the fast-acting yeast. Now, let me stir up the dry ingredients a little bit. It's not in the directions, but I think it's what we ought to do. Okay, 0 to scale again. Get my warm water. I warmed it in the microwave. 0 to scale, and we're looking for 170 grams. There's 120, 134, 154, 168. So we got just a couple of drips in there to get to 170. 170. There we go. 13 grams of olive oil. I'm gonna 0 to scale again. It's actually 1 tablespoon, but why dirty the tablespoon when I could weigh it out? I want 13 grams. 11. 13. Perfect. Now we mix it briefly with the paddle attachment and the stand mixer. Now we're supposed to scrape down the sides of the bowl. and cover it. Let it rest for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes resting, we uncover it, wet the hand we're going to stretch with, go down under the dough, pick it up, stretch, fold it back on itself. Wet the hand again, same thing. Turn the thing a quarter of a turn between each stretch. There's the second one. Turn it a quarter of a turn. There's the third one. Another quarter of a turn. Another stretch. And fold it over. Now we let it rest another 5 minutes. We're going to do this a total of 4 times, so we have 3 more to go. After 4 stretch and folds, we cover the dough and let it rest for 40 minutes. After 40 minutes of resting, I'm going to cheat a little bit and transfer the dough into a smaller bowl to fit into the refrigerator better. I'm putting a light coat of oil on the bowl, uncovering the dough. Turn this so it gets coated with oil on all sides. I'm going to cover it with a clear plastic wrap. Get it ready for the refrigerator. Alright, this is now going to go into the refrigerator overnight, where it'll rise and ferment. This is my deep frying skillet, which measures about 8.5 inches across the bottom. Pretty close, and it's the one I'm going to use. Don't be discouraged if you don't have a similar cast iron skillet to work with. Let me quote from the recipe. Heavy, dark cast iron will give you a superb crust, but if you don't have it, use another oven-safe, heavy-bottom skillet of similar size, or a 10-inch round cake pan, or a 9-inch square pan. Now, the recipe recommends that you start this step about 3 hours before you're ready to serve your pizza. I'm going to splash some olive oil into the bottom of the pan. Swirl it around a little bit for coverage. And following the instructions, I'll use a paper towel to bring some of that oil up to the sides of the pan to help prevent sticking as much as possible. Time to retrieve the dough from the refrigerator. As you can see, the dough has more than doubled in size and is ready for the next step, which is to put it in the pan. Roll it around a bit so it has oil on all sides. Now, using your fingertips, press it to the outside of the pan. The recipe states that it may shrink back from the edge of the pan, and not to worry about it. Cover it, give it 15 minutes, and push it down again. I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap and let it rest again for 15 minutes. The objective here is to have the dough expand until it's pressing to the edge of the pan. It's not quite doing that for me, so the instructions say spread it out again, dimple it with your fingers, cover it, and give it another 15 minutes, which is what I'm going to do. 15 minutes has gone by, and I can see that the dough has pressed against the side of the skillet, so we are good to go to the next step, which is leave it covered and let it rise at room temperature for 2 hours. In about an hour and 45 minutes, we should turn on the oven to 450 to preheat it. I've had the mozzarella in the freezer for 15 minutes, and I'm going to spray the face of this box grater with cooking spray, box grater. The purpose of both things is to be able to shred the cheese without tearing it. So let's try it. We've had our 2 hours of rise time, so I'm going to uncover this dough. And get on with the next step. Now we want to cover the dough completely with the mozzarella so that there is no dough left showing that's not covered. Being particularly careful to cover right up to the edges of the dough. Once the dough is covered with our mozzarella, we'll dab on some tomato sauce. And the recipe does caution about being too heavy with the tomato sauce so as to not make the dough soggy. I was unable to use my own homemade tomato sauce because I like my tomato sauce really thick, and it was so thick that when I tried to spread it, it wouldn't spread. But going back over the instructions, I see that they don't really spread it either. They dab it on like I've done here in a few spots. I think that'll do it. Now we use the remaining shredded mozzarella to cover where we put the tomato sauce. And we're ready to put it into our preheated 450-degree oven for 20 minutes. All right, we've got about 2 minutes left, and I just want to check whether the outside crust is cooking. The top looks real good. The crust is a little light still. So we'll give it another 3 minutes or so. Okay, that's the 20 minutes. Time to take it out. I'm going to use the silicone spatula to go around the edge and make sure it's free so it can come out of the pan. Well, it's cooled a little bit. I think I can give it a shot, try to get it out of the pan. Onto my cooling grid, and we'll let it cool there for a little bit. Looking pretty good. I just want to let it cool a little more before I cut it. My natural instinct would have been to cut this thing with a bread knife, but I am following the recipe from the folks at King Arthur, and they say cut it with kitchen shears, and it seems to work okay as long as it's cooled a little bit where you can handle it. Well, that works. Well, this was rather a long video, but there was a lot of detail to cover, so I hope you got through it. If you do make this pizza, send me a picture. Send me some comments. Let me know how you did. I don't want to go on too much longer since it was a long video. I just want to get to the point where once again, I thank you. I remind you to subscribe if you have not subscribed. And if you do legitimately like these videos, hit the like button for me, the thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again next time.